You look great, but welcome back to the show. Thanks for playing that game with me, man. You're good. You're fun to play games. We got to talk about your new film, How to Train Your Dragon, but you've already had a great year. You've already had a #1 movie. It was a sequel to Den of Thieves.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What if I told you that one of the most famous war movies of all time was actually filmed in a tiny studio with almost nothing real around the actors? What if the blood you saw wasn't even there during filming? And what if the man who became King Leonidas almost died making it happen? In 2025, Gerard Butler finally broke his silence about what really went on behind the scenes of 300, and his words were absolutely shocking. Every single day, someone was getting rushed to the hospital. Actors were getting stabbed in the eye with real spears. Bones were breaking during simple fight scenes. And Butler himself barely made out alive. For 18 long years, he kept quiet about the most dangerous movie set in Hollywood history. But now, he's telling the whole truth. And what he revealed will change how you see this legendary film forever. You think you know 300, but you have no idea what really happened when those cameras stopped rolling. This isn't just another behind-the-scenes story. This is a shocking truth about how far actors will go to bring an impossible vision to life, and why some secrets are too dangerous to tell until now. Let me take you back to where it all began. Gerard Butler wasn't supposed to become King Leonidas. He wasn't even supposed to become an actor at all. Born in Scotland in 1969, Butler was just 1 week away from becoming a lawyer when everything fell apart. He got drunk at the Edinburgh Festival and was fired from his law firm immediately. Just 7 days before finishing what he had worked years to build, it was all gone in an instant. But that painful moment might have saved his life. Butler later admitted that if he had stayed in law, he didn't think he would have survived. His drinking had become so dangerous that he would drink until he couldn't remember what he had done the night before. He was on a path of complete self-destruction, but losing that job forced him to completely change direction. He gave up alcohol completely and moved to London with nothing. Reality hit him like a brick wall. He had to take whatever work he could find. He waited tables and dealt with rude customers who treated him like dirt. He worked in telemarketing, calling strangers and begging them to buy things they didn't want. But the strangest job of all was selling toys on the street. He would stand at market stalls, showing kids how to use toys and hoping their parents would buy them. He was barely surviving, going from nearly becoming a successful lawyer to scraping together just enough money to eat and sleep. Then fate stepped in. He ran into someone he knew from the Scottish Youth Theatre, who had become a casting director. Not only did they reconnect and start dating, but she gave him a job as her assistant. That meant he was sitting in auditions every day, helping other actors get roles while desperately wanting to be the one auditioning. It was torture. He was so close to what he wanted, but couldn't quite reach it. Every day, he watched people audition. Some were amazing, others were terrible. He saw the whole process from the inside, and every time he handed out a script or scheduled a meeting, he was thinking that could be me up there. Eventually, it was him. His girlfriend took him to an audition for a Shakespeare play, and the director was so impressed with his raw energy that he cast him on the spot. Butler was 27 years old, and it was his first real acting job. When he walked home after getting the part, he said it felt like the happiest moment of his entire life, like something inside him had finally clicked into place. But the road to 300 was still long and dangerous. He started with tiny roles, including a 1-second appearance in a Bond film where he played a crewman with no lines. But that 1 second mattered because the movie made over $300 million. He was soaking up everything he could learn, even if nobody knew his name yet. His first starring role came in Dracula 2000, which looked like a huge break, with a $54 million budget. But the movie completely flopped, making only $47 million and losing money. However, Butler left his mark. Even under all that vampire makeup, his Scottish accent came through, making his Dracula feel different, more raw and real than others before him. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 2005, director Zack Snyder was looking for someone to play King Leonidas in 300. He didn't want a typical Hollywood pretty boy. He wanted someone who looked like he had actually lived through battles, someone who could convince audiences that he was born to be a warrior king. When Snyder saw Butler, something clicked immediately. This was his Leonidas. But what nobody realized was just how insane the filming process would become. The entire movie was shot in just 60 days inside a Montreal studio that doesn't even exist anymore. They weren't on real mountains or ancient battlefields. Almost every single scene was filmed against blue screens. Only one shot in the entire movie was done outside, and it was just horses crossing a field. Everything else, the walls, the skies, the blood, the massive armies, was added later using computers. Out of the film's 1,523 shots, more than 1,300 used visual effects. That added up to over 8,000 separate digital pieces created by 10 different companies over an entire year. The actors were performing their hearts out with absolutely nothing around them but emptiness. Gerard Butler later said he felt completely disconnected because there was nothing to look at, nothing to react to. Just another actor in front of him and a sea of blue behind him. But before they could even start filming, Butler had to transform his body into that of a Spartan king. The workout program that changed him wasn't created by some typical Hollywood trainer. It was designed by Mark Twight, a mountain climber who treated the cast like they were preparing for an actual life-or-death mission in the mountains. The training lasted for brutal months. It wasn't a quick preparation, and out of everyone who started, only 17 people completed the final test. That was just half the team. Twight didn't just push them hard. He watched every single repetition, every single movement. If it wasn't absolutely perfect, it didn't count at all. Some actors were so stressed by the pressure that they actually performed worse under his intense stare. The final test was called the 300 workout, and it was absolutely brutal. 25 pull-ups to start, then 50 deadlifts with 135 pounds, then 50 push-ups, 50 box jumps onto a 2-foot platform, 50 floor wipers, 50 clean and presses with a 36-pound kettlebell, and another 25 pull-ups to finish. No real rest between exercises. Some people finished in just 15 minutes. Others took 45. But every single round had to be completed in one go without stopping. But here's what most people don't know. This wasn't their daily routine. It was a one-time challenge to prove who was ready for the role. Most of the time, they never repeated the same workout twice. Twight changed everything every single day on purpose. The routines were completely random. One day they were flipping massive tires. The next day, they were lifting until failure with 50-pound kettlebells. No pattern, no comfort zone whatsoever. The idea was to keep their bodies shocked and in constant survival mode. That's how they transformed so quickly. The mental strain was just as important as the physical pain. When you don't know what torture is coming next, you can't prepare your mind for it. That unpredictability made it one of the most extreme fitness programs ever used in Hollywood. Gerard Butler said it was the hardest thing he had ever done in his entire life. After some workouts, he actually felt physically sick. He said it wasn't just hard, it was completely brutal, and the mental side was just as bad as the physical punishment. But it changed something deep inside him. He once said that every drop of sweat, every painful repetition stayed in his memory long after the training ended. When he finally put on the Spartan armor for the first time, he didn't feel like an actor pretending to be a warrior. He felt like a lion ready for battle. Some actors started the program 40 pounds overweight and came out looking like actual ancient warriors. They kept track of scores every single day, and it became an intense competition. Even director Zack Snyder joined the torture. He trained every morning at 8:30 before anyone else showed up, just to test himself against the same pain his actors were enduring. But all of that preparation couldn't prepare them for what would happen during actual filming. In January 2025, Butler said something that shocked everyone who heard it. While promoting his new movie, he told a magazine reporter, and I quote, "I remember every day somebody was getting taken to the hospital." He wasn't exaggerating or trying to sound tough. He meant every single word. The film made over $450 million from a $65 million budget, making it one of the most successful movies of that year. But behind all that success was an unbelievable amount of pain and real danger. In that same interview, he talked about how the movie set often felt like an actual war zone rather than a place where they were just pretending to fight. Butler remembered the injuries like he was reading from a real war report. One actor took a spear directly to the eye. Another broke his ankle during what was supposed to be a simple fight scene. And these weren't just unlucky accidents that happened once or twice. They were happening constantly. He called the whole situation completely insane. The swords and spears were dulled so they wouldn't be as sharp, but they were still made of real metal. When actors miss their timing by even half a second or move slightly out of position, someone got seriously hurt. The eye injury happened during what was supposed to be a basic, simple scene. That tells you just how dangerous every single moment really was. Butler said there were times when he would just turn around and someone was already lying on the ground, injured and in pain. The chaos became so normal that they just got used to it. Ambulances became a regular sight on set. Everyone knew that getting hurt wasn't a possibility. It was pretty much guaranteed. And Butler himself wasn't safe for long. He made it through most of 300 without major injury, but his body was falling apart in other ways. He tore a tendon in his arm and developed something called foot drop, which affected his ability to walk normally. The constant physical punishment was destroying his body piece by piece. But the real disaster came while filming his next movie right after 300 finished. During a car chase scene, his co-star was supposed to hit the brakes hard on a rooftop, but he didn't stop in time. Instead, he slammed Butler into a 3-foot concrete wall with a Range Rover going full speed. Butler said it completely destroyed his neck, and this was right after his body had already been beaten up during 300. The crash made all his existing injuries much worse, and those problems still affect him today. Here's something that will blow your mind. You would think that a movie as bloody as 300 used buckets and buckets of fake blood during filming, but the production team only used about 2 gallons of fake blood for the entire movie. That's it. Almost all the gore, the blood splashes, the sprays, the wounds, they were all added later using computers. So while actors were getting genuinely hurt and bleeding real blood on set, there was barely any fake blood being used during actual filming. It's completely ironic when you think about it. The injuries were 100% real, but the movie blood was completely fake and added later. But there are other secrets about 300 that most people never figured out. The entire movie used blue screens instead of the usual green screens because blue worked better with the Spartans' bright red capes. It might sound like a tiny technical detail, but it completely changed how the movie looked and felt. There's also a detail that people miss when they watch the movie. Look at the plume on King Leonidas's helmet. Real Spartan warriors all wore plumes on their helmets. But director Zack Snyder made a brilliant decision. He gave a distinctive black plume only to Leonidas. In scenes with hundreds of soldiers fighting and clashing, it made it incredibly easy to spot the king. Your eyes were always drawn directly to him. That plume became like a silent guide through all the chaos of battle. It helped viewers follow the action even when everything else was complete mayhem. It also helped during editing because most of the army was created digitally. But the plume gave the editing team something solid and real to track in every shot. Today, you can still buy replica helmets with that famous black plume online. It's become more than just a movie prop. It's a piece of cinematic history that people want to own. After 300 exploded at the box office and made Gerard Butler a household name, he could have played tough action heroes for the rest of his career. The money was guaranteed, and audiences loved seeing him fight and yell. But instead, he made a surprising choice that shocked Hollywood. Just a few months later, he starred in a romantic drama called P.S. I Love You, which was a complete opposite of everything people expected from the new king of action movies. People in the entertainment industry were completely stunned. Most thought he would stick to bloody battles and slow-motion fighting scenes forever. But Butler wanted to prove that he could do much more than just swing a sword and look intimidating. He kept switching between different types of movies on purpose. He had already done musicals like Phantom of the Opera, where he sang and showed his softer side. Then he did romantic comedies that made hundreds of millions of dollars. But even when he was trying to do lighter, safer movies, danger seemed to follow him everywhere. On the set of P.S. I Love You, what was supposed to be a funny, harmless scene turned dangerous in seconds. Butler had to dance around in suspenders and underwear while crawling toward his co-star Hilary Swank. It was supposed to be silly and romantic. for a day and a half. He kept filming the same scene over and over to get perfect. But then one of the metal clips on his suspenders snapped off with tremendous force. It flew straight into Swank's forehead like a bullet and cut her badly. The injury was deep enough that you could see the clip's metal teeth marks in her skin. She had to be rushed to the hospital immediately. The entire movie set was cleared in seconds. Butler, still wearing nothing but his underwear, was left alone and crying, terrified that he had seriously hurt his co-star. Production had to completely stop while Swank recovered in the hospital, adding expensive delays to the $30 million film. Despite dangerous moments like that happening regularly, Butler's career took off like a rocket. His movies have made over $3 billion worldwide. That puts him ahead of major stars like Tom Hardy, Jamie Foxx, and Tobey Maguire in total box office earnings. In the United States alone, his movies have earned almost $2 billion. When you add international numbers, it climbs to nearly $3 billion total. But his personal life has been just as intense and dangerous as his movie career. In his 20s, while living in Venice Beach with a group of heavy drinkers, Butler completely lost control of his life. He would drink until he blacked out and couldn't remember what he had done. He said it felt like he was on a death wish, slowly killing himself with alcohol. He quit drinking over 20 years ago, but that wasn't the end of his struggles with addiction. What most people don't know is that in 2012, he checked into the famous Betty Ford Clinic. But it wasn't for alcohol this time. It was for prescription painkillers. The addiction started during the filming of 300 after he got injured. It got much worse after a terrifying surfing accident in December 2011. While filming a movie called Chasing Mavericks, Butler was hit by massive waves at a legendary surf spot in Northern California. He was dragged underwater, slammed into sharp rocks, and nearly drowned. He was pulled out by jet skis and rushed to Stanford Medical Center. The pain from his injuries was so intense that he started taking strong prescription pills to deal with it. When the pill addiction started getting out of control, he made the brave decision to check himself into rehab. He stayed for 3 weeks and later said he had absolutely no regrets about getting help. That surfing accident could have easily ended his life, but he survived to tell the story. But believe it or not, another near-death experience was still coming, and this one was even stranger than anything in his movies. In 2017, after a long day of doing stunts, Butler tried something called venom therapy for muscle pain. It was supposed to be completely safe and natural, but he was given venom equal to 23 bee stings, which was 10 times more than the normal amount. His throat immediately closed up, his heart started racing dangerously fast, and he swelled up all over his body before going into shock. He had to be rushed to the hospital and almost died from the reaction. For days later, he decided to try again with much lower dose, thinking it would be safer. He had exactly the same terrible reaction and ended up back in the hospital again. Even actor Jeff Goldblum told him that trying venom therapy twice after nearly dying was completely crazy. Then came another disaster that had nothing to do with movies or stunts. In November 2018, the massive Woolsey fire swept through Los Angeles County like a monster, destroying everything in its path. Butler had to evacuate his beautiful Malibu home with just minutes to spare. When he came back on November 11th, his house was completely gone. Everything he owned had been burned to ashes. Only twisted metal pieces and gray ashes remained where his home used to be. He posted a heartbreaking photo of himself standing in the ruins with smoke still rising behind him. He simply wrote, "Welcome to my home in Malibu." Wow! The fire destroyed over 1,600 buildings and burned almost 97,000 acres. A full year later, his house still hadn't been rebuilt. Through all of these personal disasters, Butler never stopped helping other people who needed it even more than he did. Since 2010, he has been one of the strongest supporters of a charity called Mary's Meals. He doesn't just donate money from a distance. He has traveled to countries like Liberia and Haiti, helped cook meals with his own hands, and taught classes to children. Today, that charity feeds 2 million children every single school day across 19 different countries. In 2020, he received the Cinema for Peace Honorary Award in Berlin. joining famous names like Leonardo DiCaprio and George Clooney as someone who uses their fame to help make the world better. But his love life has been much more complicated and uncertain. Since 2014, he has been in an on-and-off relationship with interior designer Morgan Brown. They have broken up twice, once in 2016 and again in 2020. In 2022, they got back together, but the relationship still seems unstable. Butler once said in an interview that he wanted to settle down and get married by age 50 and start a family. Now he's 55 years old and still hasn't proposed to Morgan. She's now 54 and reportedly getting tired of waiting for him to make a commitment. It seems like the man who can face any physical danger in movies is still afraid of the emotional risk of marriage. Looking back at everything Gerard Butler went through to become King Leonidas, it's amazing that 300 ever got made at all. The combination of extreme physical training, dangerous stunts with real weapons, actors getting injured every single day, and filming everything against fake blue screens with no real backgrounds should have been a recipe for complete disaster. But somehow, all of that pain and chaos created something magical. The movie became a cultural phenomenon that people still quote and reference almost 20 years later. Lines like "This is Sparta" became part of everyday language. The visual style influenced dozens of other movies that tried to copy its look. 300 proved that audiences were hungry for something different, something that felt more real and intense than the polished, safe movies that Hollywood usually makes. The fact that the actors were genuinely suffering and pushing their bodies to the absolute limit somehow translated through the screen. You could feel their pain and exhaustion, and it made the performances more believable and powerful. Gerard Butler's willingness to nearly destroy his body for the role of King Leonidas changed his entire career and made him one of the most recognizable action stars in the world. But it also showed just how far some actors are willing to go to bring an impossible vision to life, even when it means risking their health and safety every single day. The secrets he kept for 18 years remind us that the movies we love often come at a much higher cost than we ever imagine. Behind every epic battle scene and amazing stunt, there are real people putting their bodies and lives on the line to entertain us. The next time you watch 300, you'll see it completely differently, knowing what Gerard Butler and his fellow actors really went through to make it happen. So what do you think about these shocking revelations? Did you have any idea that 300 was as dangerous to make? Are you amazed that Gerard Butler kept these secrets for so long? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story blew your mind as much as it did mine, make sure to smash that like button, share this video with your friends who love movies, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible behind-the-scenes stories that Hollywood doesn't want you to know. Trust me, there are so many more secrets waiting to be revealed, and you won't want to miss a single one.